This place should have remained unexplored. That's how the story started, when my sister's ex sat me down one night and told me about a burned house on the edge of town in Puerto Rico, an eyesore everyone avoided. He said the whole block gave it a wide berth. Bent fences, rusted bars over the windows. "Keep out," spray-painted on the sagging gate. Old people in the neighborhood whispered that witches once lived there. Kids dared each other to touch the fence and then ran off. There were rumors, too, about people who went looking and never came back. I'm not saying any of that is true. He told me what he'd heard, what he'd seen as a kid. Treat it like the sort of thing you'd tell around a fire. Unsettling, very likely exaggerated, but hard to forget. If you like creepy true tales, like this and stick around. This one gets worse. When he was small, he and his younger brother were the kind of kids who thought rules were just ideas other people made up. One afternoon, when the sun was leaning toward evening and cicadas hummed in the heat, they slipped through a gap in the fence and crept up to the house. From the outside, it looked half erased, blackened wood, a roof with holes, the smell of smoke that never quite left. But the windows still had bars, and the yard was littered with shards of glass and twisted metal. The place felt forbidden in a way the boys liked. They peered through a window. That's when the weirdness started. Small at first, then curling into something wrong. Through the soot-streaked glass, they saw a living room that could have been pulled from a memory. A couch rucked the same way theirs was at home. A table had the same gouge where a toy truck had met it years earlier. A faded poster hung on the wall in the same crooked angle. It was like someone had copied their entire house and dropped it inside this burned-out shell. Why did the inside look like their house? He said they froze. They tapped at the bars. They watched dust move in a single shaft of late light, slow and deliberate. Names were written in pencil on the frames of two beds, nicknames only their family used. Tiny, private things. Little scars on the wooden headboard matched a chip on their own bed at home. The boys kept saying it was impossible. They kept saying it was someone playing a sick joke. But the details were too personal. The place held their private life back at them through glass. The front door stood unlocked. He claimed he didn't know why they pushed it. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the arrogance of kids who think consequences are distant. The lock clicked open easy, like an invitation. The air inside smelled like old smoke and sweet, sickly shadow. It was cooler in there. The burned shell held a hush that made their voices tiny. They crossed the threshold, and the house swallowed the sound. Room after room matched their home. The same paint chips, the same cushion with a seam pulled just so, the same stack of comic books on a shelf. They moved through it slowly, half expecting someone to call out. Nothing answered. Their footsteps were loud in the quiet. At one point in a small bedroom, there were two beds pushed against the wall, each with a name penciled on the frame. He said his brother ran his finger over the letters like he could confirm they were real. The air felt wrong, like someone had rearranged the world to make a joke at their expense. One of the boys lay down on his bed, because kids test boundaries by doing exactly the least sensible thing. He told me later he did it to prove he wasn't afraid. He said the mattress felt ordinary, too ordinary, like landing on a memory instead of a surface. He closed his eyes. For a few seconds, everything settled. Then the feeling started, like being watched through a mirror. Not a person watching from a corner, but the sense of someone else inhabiting the shape of him, looking back with interest. He opened his eyes. At first he thought it was a trick of light. Then he saw them step from the doorway. Two figures, roughly the same age as the boys, moving as if they'd been waiting. Their faces were wrong. They were, almost, mirrors. Same height, same hair, same clothes, but every feature was off by a degree that made them feel like photographs of living things. The worst part, he said, were the eyes. Red. Not bright fire, but a deep, steady red that didn't blink like human eyes do. And the smiles. The kind of smile that doesn't curve with warmth, but with appetite. Too wide, too patient. For a moment, everything froze. Time condensed into that small, awful instant where you see what you were trying to avoid. The boys' hearts did what hearts do when survival takes over. They bolted. He didn't describe anything grabbing them or speaking in a weird voice. Just the pure, immediate knowledge that those shapes across the room weren't friends. The house had given them back a version of themselves that wanted them to be still. They ran. Fast. Out through the door they had opened, through the yard where the fence musicked under their hands, over the cracked sidewalk, not daring to look back until the safety of the street seemed honest again. Behind them, he said, the windows held their images for a beat. Two pale faces pressed against glass, where the red eyes vanished like stains washed by light. The boys never went near that house again. They told their parents, but you already know how those stories land. Kids and grown-ups exchange looks. The actual reply a shrug. The house continued to sit, burnt out and avoided. A landmark of rumor in a neighborhood that learned to keep its distance. People still say it's cursed. People still say witches once lived there. I don't know which of that is true. I only know what was told to me. The exactness of the rooms, the names on the beds, the two figures that matched the boys with eyes like coals. You can believe it, or you can call it a made-up fear spread between kids who like to scare themselves. Either way, the lesson the boys took away was plain and stubborn. Some places hold on to you in a way that's not right. Some places copy you back. Some places should be left alone. So, if you ever find yourself curious about a burned house behind bars with a history no one wants to claim, if you see a window that shows something too familiar, remember this story they told me. This place should have remained unexplored. If you have a story like this, drop it in the comments or send it my way. Subscribe for more of these true oral legends, and be careful which doors you push open.